BNE News. I'm your host, Emily Simpson, and today we will be debating the important question of if all countries should have equal access to nuclear weapons. There are 9 countries today that have nuclear weapons: Russia, the United States, France, China, the United Kingdom, Pakistan, India, Israel, and North Korea. Today, the world's inventory of nuclear weapons is at a very high level of 15,700. About 4,100 warheads are considered operational, and 1,800 U.S. and Russian warheads are on high alert and are ready for use. The number of nuclear weapons that each country has is highly classified. In 1968, the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty was created, and in addition, the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty was added in 1996 in an attempt to ban nuclear weapons use.
For decades, a growing global community has joined together to stop the spread of nuclear weapons and promote the use of nuclear technology for good. The United States of America has been at the forefront of these efforts from the start. Nuclear technology spread in the 1950s and 1960s without a framework for cooperation, threatening to throw the world into chaos and destruction. During the 1960 presidential debate, President Kennedy said, "I think the fate not only of our own civilization, but I think the fate of the world and the future of the human race is involved in preventing a nuclear war." The international community combined forces, and together we avoided disaster. Now, in its 45th year, the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, or NPT, is a critical part of global security. The United States is fulfilling its commitments in all 3 pillars of the NPT. We've worked toward a world without nuclear weapons and have already reduced our nuclear stockpile by 80% since the NPT entered into force. The ongoing implementation of the New START Treaty shows our continued commitment to disarmament. It's true that the U.S. and Russia possess over 90% of the world's nuclear weapons, so our shared work continues. Under the landmark 1993 HEU Purchase Agreement, material equal to 20,000 Russian nuclear weapons was converted into a major electricity source for the United States. The U.S. is unmatched in our support for non-proliferation. We promote and facilitate nuclear safety and security programs around the world, including a global effort to lock down nuclear and radiological material so it doesn't fall into the hands of terrorists. We are the single largest supporter of the International Atomic Energy Agency, or the IAEA, which works to promote and safeguard the safe, secure, and peaceful use of nuclear technologies. Peaceful uses of nuclear energy address challenges such as climate change, food, water, and energy security, and sustainable development. Through the IAEA Peaceful Uses Initiative and other efforts, the U.S. is a leader in supporting projects that are making a real difference around the world. The United States has a deep understanding of the grave impacts of the use of nuclear weapons, and while we're fighting nuclear dangers across the board, there is still much to do. No matter the obstacles, the U.S. is committed to strengthening the NPT, understanding that each pillar is important and reinforces the others. The NPT is still our best tool in reducing the nuclear threat. Working together with our global partners, we can achieve the peace and security of a world without nuclear weapons.
There will be more on this topic after the break.
Have you ever wanted to enjoy your favorite food without getting 12 pounds? With Archer Farms, you can enjoy an array of healthy toppings on your pizza. You'll find yourself losing 12 pounds instead of gaining it. Yum, yum.
Milk-Bone, healthy favorites, all natural dog biscuits. When your dogs hear them, they'll come running. All dogs love Milk-Bones.
I traveled all around Raleigh to get people's opinions on this hot topic. Let's see what they have to say.
So no, I don't think that all countries should have equal access to nuclear weapons because not all countries are responsible enough to have that kind of power in their hands. And some have too much destruction going on in their country.
I think yes, because if they have the technology to pursue nuclear weapons, then they should be allowed to, because since we created nuclear weapons, we had the money and the technology to create use them. So we worked for it.
Yes, because we need to protect ourselves.
I don't think all countries should have access to nuclear weapons because, like, as Jasmine said, they're not responsible enough to, like, have weapons. Like, it put the whole world in danger, not knowing if they're gonna bomb someone or not. Yeah. That's all I'm gonna say.
It depends on what they're going to use it for.
Yes, I think they should have access to nuclear weapons because everyone has the right to protect themselves.
I do not feel all countries should have access to nuclear weapons. I think that in the hands of the wrong countries, such as state-sponsored countries who sponsor terrorists, such as Iran, it is a major threat to Israel and our allies in the Middle East, as well as a threat to us here in the United States.
No, I think not, because it would just be another probably world war to see who has the most power, and it would probably end in world destruction.
That's all I'm gonna say.
Nuclear weapons are very dangerous. Eventually, I believe that since all countries have technology that can build nuclear weapons, they will start creating it as means of power and use it whenever they want to.
I believe that all countries should have equal access to nuclear weapons.
I agree with whatever Donald Trump says.
First of all, I think we need somebody absolutely that we can trust, who's totally responsible, who really knows what he or she is doing. That is so powerful and so important. And one of the things that I'm frankly most proud of is that in 2003, 2004, I was totally against going into Iraq because you're going to destabilize the Middle East. I called it very strongly, and it was very important. But we have to be extremely vigilant and extremely careful when it comes to nuclear. Nuclear changes the whole ballgame. Frankly, I would have said, get out of Syria, get out. If we didn't have the power of weaponry today, the power is so massive that we can't just leave areas that 50 years ago or 75 years ago, we wouldn't care. It was hand-to-hand combat. The biggest problem this world has today is not President Obama with global warming, which is inconceivable. This is what he's saying. The biggest problem we have today is nuclear proliferation, and having some maniac, having some madman go out and get a nuclear weapon. That's, in my opinion, that is the single biggest problem that our country faces right now.
After the break, I will be bringing in two professionals to talk about nuclear weapons.
Are you looking for some famous chicken and biscuits to satisfy your cravings? Well, head over to Bojangles.
It's bow time.
Are you ever bored and crave the delicious taste of bubblegum?
What's this? Hubba Bubba? Wow! Hubba Bubba.
I'm here with Betsy Mueller and Nicole Mercer today to discuss nuclear weapons.
Hi, thank you so much for having us. I'm Betsy. And I'm Nicole.
Okay, Nicole, we will be starting with you. What is your opinion on this issue?
I completely agree with all those who said not every country should have access to nuclear weapons. Quite frankly, I don't think any country should have access to them at all. If every country gains access to them, the world would be constantly at risk of world destruction, but if only certain countries have the means to produce and consume them, there will be a great chance of a third world war, because there will be a huge sense of fear and threat among the countries who do not have the access towards those who have them. In a perfect and ideal world, there would be no access to nuclear weapons at all. Yes, guns and bombs are very destructive and dangerous, but putting nuclear weapons on the table completely changes the game.
Now, Betsy, what do you think?
I believe all countries should have equal access to nuclear weapons. I agree with those who said that all countries should have equal opportunities to protect and defend themselves if they are able to produce them. Today,
Some states are more developed than others and are more powerful and strong with their conventional weapons than other countries, while others have poor militaries with little ability to defend themselves. Equal access to nuclear weapons will allow powerful and powerless countries to be able to compete fairly. For example, the Russian invasion of Georgia in 2008 would likely never have occurred, as Russia would have thought twice when considering the potential loss of several of its cities it would need to exchange for a small piece of Georgian territory. Clearly, nuclear weapons serve in many ways to equalize states despite their size, allowing them to more effectively defend themselves. Countries will behave rationally with nuclear weapons, as they have done so since their invention and initial proliferation. Weapons in the hands of more people will thus not result in a greater risk of their use. All countries recognize the power of nuclear weapons and the mass destruction they can bring. This is why none of the 9 countries with nuclear weapons have engaged in a full-scale nuclear war. For example, the conflict between India and Pakistan was diffused by the new accessibility of nuclear weapons on both sides. Before they obtained nuclear weapons, they had fought 3 wars that claimed millions of lives. Now, relations between the 2 states are not perfect, but are still better than they were before the accessibility of nuclear weapons. The tension between the 2 states over the fear of nuclear weapons has allowed the 2 countries to negotiate peacefully.
And there will be more on this topic after the break.
Do you ever find yourself in the mornings tired, sluggish, not wanting to carry on with your day?
Yep.
Now, with Starbucks, you can feel refreshed and ready to take on whatever the day has in store for you.
I feel so energized now. Do developed countries tend to have more access to nuclear weapons than developing countries do?
Well, Emily, I'm glad you asked. It would seem like they would, but this is not true.
Well, Nicole, why would they not have more access?
Well, to be able to have nuclear weapons, most of the population needs to be concentrated in cities, and there needs to be lots of rural land available to test the weapons on. Countries also have to obtain the resources needed to experiment and produce weapons safely by first becoming industrialized. Less developed countries are just starting to go through industrialization, providing them with the factories needed to produce nuclear weapons.
But India and Pakistan both have nuclear weapons and are not developed. So while the level of development of a country may impact the number of nuclear weapons it has, it must not impact it much, as developing countries still are able to produce and have access to nuclear weapons. Israel and Iran are both estimated to have a small number of nuclear weapons, but have not tested them, and Israel and Iran are both developing countries. So while the level of development of a country does seem to affect the accessibility of nuclear weapons, the impact is not great.
Would it work to give only some countries access to nuclear technology and deny it to others? And what would be the danger of giving some countries nuclear weapons access?
No, I do not think this would work, because if only certain countries have the means to produce and consume nuclear weapons, there will be a great chance of a third war, because there will be a huge sense of fear and threat among the countries without access to deadly weapons towards those who have the access to them.
Also, some countries engaged in wars would abuse their nuclear weapon power. They could use it to cause fear for the other country, or even use them to destroy the other country. Also, some countries with less security could allow nuclear weapons to fall into the wrong hands of terrorists.
That's a good point.
How could this power be misused by countries?
Countries could use nuclear weapons to install fear into its citizens, or produce more than another country and threaten another country with intimidation.
Exactly. For example, even though Daesh does not have its own definitive country, it would be extremely dangerous if they got a hold of nuclear weapons because there's not a doubt in my mind that they would use them against their neighbors Syria and Israel, along with the US. If no one has nuclear weapons, the world will be at less of a threat.
It's a good deal, a deal that meets our core objectives, including strict limitations on Iran's program and cutting off every pathway that Iran could take to develop a nuclear weapon. This deal denies Iran the plutonium necessary to build a bomb. It shuts down Iran's path to a bomb using enriched uranium. Iran has agreed that it will not stockpile the materials needed to build a weapon. Moreover, international inspectors will have unprecedented access to Iran's nuclear program, because Iran will face more inspections than any other country in the world. If Iran cheats, the world will know it. If we see something suspicious, we will inspect it. So this deal is not based on trust. It is based on unprecedented verification. And this is a long-term deal, with strict limits on Iran's program for more than a decade, and unprecedented transparency measures that will last for 20 years or more. And as a member of the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, Iran will never be permitted to develop a nuclear weapon. In return for Iran's actions, the international community, including the United States, has agreed to provide Iran with phased relief from certain sanctions. If Iran violates the deal, sanctions can be snapped back into place. Meanwhile, other American sanctions on Iran for its support of terrorism, its human rights abuses, its ballistic missile program, all will continue to be enforced. As I said this week, many key details will need to be finalized over the next 3 months, and nothing is agreed to until everything is agreed. And if there's backsliding, there will be no deal. Here in the United States, I expect a robust debate. We'll keep Congress and the American people fully briefed on the substance of the deal. As we engage in this debate, let's remember, we really only have 3 options for dealing with Iran's nuclear program. Bombing Iran's nuclear facilities, which will only set its program back a few years while starting another war in the Middle East. Abandoning negotiations and hoping for the best with sanctions, even though that's always led to Iran making more progress in its nuclear program. Or a robust and verifiable deal like this one, that peacefully prevents Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon. As President and Commander-in-Chief, I firmly believe that the diplomatic option, a comprehensive long-term deal like this, is by far the best option for the United States, for our allies, and for the world.
I agree. Differing ethnicities in certain countries have tension. If the country had nuclear weapons and weapons fell into the hands of different ethnicities, they could destroy the country if they use these weapons. If people aren't responsible with nuclear weapons and don't understand the power and destruction they can bring, then our world could end.
Yeah.
What countries would the access of nuclear weapons benefit?
It would benefit countries with bad economies, as the production of nuclear weapons will allow for a lot more jobs.
I have nothing else to say. You said it perfectly.
How would this access help a country to grow and develop?
It would allow a country to grow and develop because it would allow for more jobs to be able to produce nuclear weapons.
However, this long term does not create a high enough revenue to boost the economy.
And there will be more on this topic after the break.
Do you want a shirt that could be a sailboat? Say no more.
Is nuclear weapons access necessary to be a country of power?
No, I do not think having nuclear access is necessary to be a superpower. To be viewed as a superpower, I think the country should have high reverence and a strong economy and should be viewed as superior for only good things, not for the ability to destroy humanity.
I agree. You said it perfectly. Now that Nicole and I have provided you with information on both sides about the accessibility of nuclear weapons, it is time for you to decide for yourself. Should all countries have equal access to nuclear weapons? Think this over while Karen Smith gives you the weather for this week.
welcome to BNE News. This is your weather announcement. My name is Karen Smith. Okay, you guys, so as you can see, there's like a 50% chance that it was already raining because, you know, got my rain boots on. Okay, so, forecast for the rest of the week. It's not really decided yet. You just kind of gotta wait till it happens, or you can like look at some other news. Like, why are you asking me? See you next week.
Ever wanted to go hunting in the rain? I have. Well, now you can with Hunter rain boots.
Oh, I get it, cause you're hunting. You're a hunter, cause I'm a bang. But they're boots and they're rain-proofed.
Yeah. Your feet will stay dry.
But you can hunt. Yeah, that's brilliant. Yep, hands down, best invention.
Thank you for joining us this week on BNE News. See you next week.